Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Short Ball Podcast, previewing this week SG Ball, Harold Matthews, round one. You've also got the first of the NRL preseason trials. Yesterday was the first team list Tuesday of the year. Super exciting stuff for all NRL fans, anybody that follows the junior reps and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's today. Well, when you're hearing this, I'm going to be previewing all the SG Ball, all the Harold Matthews. I'm looking at all the team lists, players to watch, all that sort of stuff. And then going to be moving on to the NRL trials as well. Letting you know what players you should be watching out for, what guys are fighting for positions, all those sorts of things. And just having that sort of discussion. So we'll kick right off with the SG Ball. We'll start off with it, as I usually do. And the first game of the round is 11:30am, Mascot Oval, Roosters, Panthers. I'll be out this game. I'll be out covering both the Roosters and Panthers games because these should be two very strong sides in both grades. For the Roosters, you've got an incredibly stacked side. Team lists are all posted up on my Instagram, so if you go over there, you can see the team lists as you're listening or whatever. But yeah, I'm not going to read through them all. Takes too much time, but this side is incredible. The forward pack, like you got Charleston Torore, Atula Seve front row, like that's ridiculous. Charleston was one of the best front rows in the Harold Matthews competition last year in a side that finished third, and then you had obviously Darcy Smith, James Finnegan in the back row. Darcy Smith's named captain, and Eddie Kalis, who I thought was unlucky not to be an Australian schoolboy last year at lock. So this is a incredible side. Liam Bell, Australian schoolboy at 9. Carter Mariko, Harold Matthews Player of the Year. Like this side is incredibly stacked, and they got Rex Bathingthwaite and Louis Lee to come back. They're going to be coming back in round 3, from what I've heard. So this side's looking to go back to back for sure. And then on the other side of the fence, you got the Penrith Panthers, who won their trial up against Parramatta that I was at there and watched out at Windsor. They looked pretty impressive there. They've got a pretty strong looking forward pack. Even, a couple of guys off the bench, Stephen Wayland, Cooper Floods have been going around for a little bit, Mace Schofield. These sorts of guys who have played a little bit of footy. Owen Knowles was in their Harold Matthews side. He's got a bit of utility value there. He can play a bit of halves, a bit of fullback. I'm sure he could slot into the back line anywhere, really, if required. Then you got likes of Hunter Bell out the back at fullback. One that was really interesting for me is Elijah Berv to play 7. He was up at Queensland. He was sort of playing that 14 utility role for the Queensland schoolboys side. I hadn't seen too much out of him. I did the same thing last week where I was trying to remember where else I'd seen him outside of that schoolboys comp. But yeah, I'm not going to sit and dwell on that for too long, but he was pretty good in that trial against Parramatta. Him and Leo Stipe Latu had a really good combination going on down that right edge. I'll be interested to see who the centre is on that right side. You got Zeke Selwood and Kaya Cribb here, who I haven't seen a whole lot of off the top of my head. So interested to see how they go, especially outside too. Really good, like a halfback and a back rower. And then you got Tyler Peckin, who's going to be outside them, who scored a couple of tries in that trial and had a couple of line breaks as well. So this is going to be a really good matchup, I think, to top 8 sides. From what I was, when I was doing my preview, I think I had both these sides in the top 8. Sydney Roosters, I think, are the premiership favourites. And I think they're shooting away the more and more I see and the more and more I hear as the favourites to win this comp. This game this weekend, it's a Roosters home game out at Mascot. They started off a little bit slow last year, and that seems to be a trait of Roosters junior pathways sides, just starting a little bit slow. But I think their forward pack should get them over the top here. That forward pack is way too strong to be getting dominated by anyone. Like that's looking at that on paper now, like I reckon it's only the Eels that can match him, and I don't think the Eels would be able to match him this week with a couple of injuries and whatnot. But like that's a tough matchup first week. Atula Seve is probably going to be playing New South Wales Cup for the most part of this year, and he's starting prop in this game. So look, I've got the Roosters in this one. But yeah, I think two very competitive sides. I think it should be a pretty good contest. But I've got the Roosters there. Next game is going to be the Western Suburbs Magpies and the Parramatta Eels. This one is at Kirkham Oval in Camden, 12 p.m. kickoff. So about half an hour after the Roosters Panthers game. So unfortunately, you can't watch both at the unless you got multiple TVs running bar TV for you. But for the Western Suburbs Magpies, I didn't have too much to say on them in the preview because I hadn't seen any of their trials, but they look a solid side on paper. There's no number 8 named. There wasn't any on the team, so I'm going to assume it's going to be Christian Tapau-Moores. He's in their squad. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be playing, especially with the trend of Western Suburbs Magpies and having, players pulled back, especially, you got Phoenix got an 8 here at 11, and I said this side would probably be a top 8 side with Phoenix got an 8, and I don't mind that call now looking at that side. The two halves, Javon and Curtis Lakeman, very strong footy players. Curtis Lakeman's a good crafty kicking game and controls the ball well, and Javon's a really good ball running 6, physical, stronger body. This forward pack looks really strong as well. I'm a big fan of that Siatame Havea Jr. He's been coming through the mat side the last couple of years and now comes up to SG ball. He's just straight into that starting lock position, really mobile, lock forward, just that sort of fleet-footed, stocky build. They look like a pretty solid side this year, and they're not going to be an easy beat for the Parramatta Eels in any sense of the word. For the Eels, they're named not mostly as expected, but there is a couple of changes, but they do have a couple of injuries as well. Like, I know the back row position took a lot of people by surprise. Chris Petrus is named in the 21, but apparently he was seen in a moon boot recently, so I think he might be injured. Not sure if he's going to come into the side or not. But yeah, Petrus is injured. Sam Polly, he's out until round 4. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that last week as well. But yeah, there's a couple of injuries to this forward pack. Lincoln Fletcher, worth noting, most likely only going to play rounds 1 to 3 for the Eels, but he's named there at 7. But yeah, you got a really good spine here with Cameron Bamblett, Talon Rosati at 6, Lincoln Fletcher at 7, and Jara Trey Stewart. He's at 9. He was at Harold Matthews 9 last year and was super good. He impressed me a lot last season. This forward pack, like straight off the top, Stephen Nunn and Ryder Talangi. I think Ryder Talangi is going to play most of the season, if not all of it. So he's going to be very interesting to watch in that SG ball comp. He should just be a level above at this point. By all reports, he's been absolutely killing it in preseason, so I expect him to sort of take that leap. Jackson Coyner in the middle as well there at 13. I don't have to say too much more on him. I gave him a fair rap last week, and I've been giving him a fair rap this whole sort of preseason. So now it's just time for the footy to do the talking. I think Parramatta wins this. I think they're a very strong side, even missing a couple of players. But like I said, Magpies are going to be no easy beat in this contest. They've got a couple of really good players there. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Magpies are one of those sides that can sneak into the 8. I don't know that they're going to be a top 4 side or a super competitive side in terms of pushing towards a premiership. But they're going to be there and thereabouts. The next game is the Raiders versus the Dragons. I'll just get them up here. That was at Raiders Belconnen down at Canberra. Their home game, 12:30, so you're not getting down there in time after the Roosters, Panthers, or Magpies, Eels games, unless you can get down there in half an hour. But, I actually really like this Raiders team list, just looking at it straight away. When I was looking through them yesterday, they look like a very strong side. They were named mostly as expected. There's a lot of guys returning from last year. Like I said, the spine looks like it's going to be really good. Just worth noting, I had Isaiah Cornforth getting that 6 jersey. They've gone Jamie Cowling at 6 and Tiger Campbell at 7. I hadn't seen much of Tiger Campbell. The name's new to me, but that's going to be worth watching there. I'm keen to see how he goes. Considering he has won that 7 jersey over Isaiah Cornforth, who I think is a pretty good player, but he's a handy 14 as well. So this side, it looks really strong. Cooper Johnson out the back, he's going to be the one to watch for this team. very, just dynamic speedster fullback. Can cover wing and centres as well, but this year he'll probably just be the fullback for the full season. I don't know if that's going to be his position long term pushing into the NRL, but I know early on in his career, I think in the NRL he'd probably be an outside back, but he's going to be super exciting to watch. Him and Jamie Cowling link up really nicely. They've played plenty of footy together over the last year or so. The back row as well, really strong. Tolson McCulloch, Jordan Amayo. I mentioned them last week as well. Two very good players there at back row. And Ezra Leota at 9. Upper Queensland. He was named in that Queensland Under-19's emerging squad that came out the other day. Go over to my Instagram if you want to see that. But yeah, he's a very strong player there as well at 9. He's sort of that crafty running number 9, sort of in that Abby Coruscant mold. He's probably a bit bulkier, a bit stronger defensively. He's a bit he's very physical defensively. Just that little bit of a bigger body and very crafty out of dummy half and got a good running game. For the St. George Dragons, something worth watching here. Larima Sakuru, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He was named captain and he's at fullback. He was playing 6 last year for the Eels SG ball side before Lorenzo Talatena come back in. So he's going to be one to watch there for the Dragons. Cornelius Pupuali, like I mentioned last week, and as I just noticed spelling mistakes in these team lists, I'm just going through them rapidly yesterday. I just thought I got mostly right, but the odd letter here and there anyway. They're going to be a couple ones to watch. Samuel Mardini was playing at Holy Cross, I believe. He done a couple of good things there, a bit of a stocky winger. Got a good carry on him. Apart from that, Alex Pupuali, I haven't seen him. I'm pretty sure he did a ACL last year. He done a long-term injury last year that saw him not play any footy, but from all reports, he's a really good forward as well there. He's lining up in the 8 jersey. No Josiah Key, as I mentioned, no Phoenix Johns. It's a bit of a weaker side overall. But yeah, those players that I mentioned worth watching. I've got the Raiders in this one. I just think they're from 1 to 17. They just line up better. I think they're going to be a strong side this year. The Raiders, I had them in my 8 as well from that preview podcast. So I just skipped over questions that I was going to do during each game preview. Just stuff that up. But back to the Panthers real quickly. I had questions, opinion on the ball, and Matt's halves for Penrith. And obviously, I'm going to do the Mats, want to do the Mats preview. But for ball, I sort of touched on it. Elijah Burv, I think he's a good player. Cedric Peter-Tafola, he's played multiple years now at the Panthers. He's played sort of 6 and centre a little bit. He was good in that trial. I think he's come on a little bit this season. He always had the talent sort of there. This could be a big year for him, so I really do like that halves combination for Penrith. And the other one was with Petrus and Davis available, but not selected this week. How do you fit them into the team? Petrus goes straight into the team. Like, there's no world in which he's available and isn't in the side. Like I said before, I think the rumor is that he's injured. I don't know exactly what it is. You spotted a moon boot, whatever. He might still come into this side and play this week, although I doubt it if he hasn't just been straight up named. But if he's available, he's straight inside. Riley Davis, for me, I see him as more of a backup. It is interesting that Lincoln Fletcher is apparently not going to be playing the full season. But yeah, because then at that point, what is it? Rosati and Bamblin in the halves, like who's the other 7 that can come into that lineup. But yeah, Riley Davis for me, he was unreal in Mats last year. He was really good for Patricia Brothers Blacktown as well. But he's stuck behind Cameron Bamblett and Talon Rosati, who are going to be the 1 and the 6. Like, regardless, you could flip them around. It'd probably still be the case. Whether, they go with Bamblett, Rosati in the halves and have Riley Davis at fullback. If Lincoln Fletcher doesn't end up playing the full season, then that's probably how you get him in. But I do think he's going to be very stiff not to play much footy this year. He probably does get his chances here and there. But yeah, I think he's just going to be the unlucky one, Riley Davis. Storm versus Bears is the next one. Like I said in the preview, Storm, I'm super excited about. Their spine's incredible. Even, no Cooper Vitana this week. Not sure why he's not named. I'm going to have to assume it's an injury. He didn't play any of the trials or anything either. But yeah, once he comes back, if he does come back this season, I haven't heard anything on him. That's going to be an incredible side. But don't sleep on Max Tokovar, who's named at 6. He was really good for them Harold Matthews side last year in a team that struggled. He was probably one of their best players, if not their best player last season. He was playing 7. He's going to play more of a second fiddle role to Hayden Watson, but I don't mind that because he looks like a really creative number 7. He's got a good short kicking game. He just plays what's in front of him, which was really impressive about him last year. He was able to create points really out of nothing at some stages last year. This forward pack, it all just lines up sort of as expected for the Melbourne Storm. And they look like a side that's going to be super competitive this season. I don't need to say too much more on them. I sort of rambled on a little bit last week on that preview podcast. North Sydney Bears, Cody Field named on the wing, which was interesting. I would have thought fullback or 6 and maybe Saxon Gore at 7, and they sort of lean into those two, just playing what they see. But Joseph Wesser, who's played at the Bears for a little bit, I'm pretty sure he was in their SG ball side last year off the top of my head. He gets that fullback spot. Cody Field out in the wing. Boston Cameron named on the wing. I sort of had him down as a centre, but I guess he can play both. And Saxon Gore, he's the one to watch for mine at 6. And at lock, Archie Morris, another one to watch. Tough lock forward. It was really impressive for them last year. In Matts, I believe he was in. That's just off the top of my head. And Saxon Gore, yeah, he was super crucial to everything that they did last year. He was in my top 10 for the Player of the Year rankings for Harold Matthews. Yeah, he's sort of their star player coming through at the Bears at the moment, Saxon Gore. I got the Bears winning this. I got the Storm winning this one. Sorry, I think the Storm are just too good. And I think the way that they line up, incredibly strong. They trialled well. Yeah, I've got them winning. Central Coast Roosters, Balmain Tigers in SG Ball. This one's certainly an interesting matchup. It'll be good to see where both teams are at because I don't really have too much of a gauge. Worth noting for the Central Coast Roosters, Corbin Devaney played fullback last week for their Laurie Daly Cup side. He's going to back straight up and play on the wing. He was their leading try scorer in Harold Matthews last year. So he's going to be one worth watching there out in the wing. Him and Bodie Jeffries will line up there. I mentioned him last week. Kyron Blair named at 6. He's usually sort of been sort of a fullback / outside back from what I've seen. Interesting to know that he's being named at 6 for this game. He's worth a watch. Callan Cashin gets that 9 jersey. Austin Artuna Tenny in the front row position. So yeah, a lot of these guys that I touched on last week are there and thereabouts. Yeah, they're a couple of good players there. I do, like I said, I think their forward pack's tough. And yeah, the captain, Charles Barnes, I haven't seen too much of him, but, lock forward being named captain, I'm just going to have to assume he's tough and works his ass off. So I'm actually keen to see how he goes for them. For Balmain, Caden Kanan wins that fullback jersey over Ali Kanib. Blake Van Dree, interesting to note, he's captain and at lock. I sort of had him in as a 6, but Alex Isdale has actually signed with the Balmain Tigers. He joined their training camp literally probably a couple of days before I recorded last week's podcast, from what I was told. So a good addition there in the halves. Alex Isdale, Christian Azzi in the halves looks good for this level. And then Caden Kanan out the back, he's a good player. Ali Kanib out in the wing, he's sort of been doing it for the last 3 or 4 years in the junior rep system, mostly at the Magpies. He moves over to the Balmain Tigers now. they've got a pretty solid side here, the Tigers. Michael Bastani, I mentioned him last week as well. He's going to be worth watching. Philippe Puahulu, he played in their match side last year. He was in the SG Ball side last year, rather. He was a good try scorer out wide on the wing there. He was sitting outside Xavier Taufaga, which is probably good real estate, in all honesty. You're going to score plenty of tries outside him, but he's worth watching there as well. Balmain Tigers, I actually like the look of this squad. I had them missing the 8. I still do have them missing the 8. But it's probably a little bit better squad than I gave them credit for. Certainly a couple of players to watch. If you are a Tigers fan, it's going to be an exciting team to watch, especially against these, Central Coast Roosters and some of those lower ranked sides. I think this is a matchup of, an exciting ball playing, probably going to throw the ball around team. With two, strong halves, good fullback, versus a team that looks like it's got a pretty tough forward pack. And, points out in the edges with Bodie Jeffries and Corbin Devaney, who are two really good finishers. It's an interesting matchup. I'm going to lean towards the Balmain Tigers. I do like that halves pairing a lot. I think it's going to be a really close game. I'm actually, getting more and more excited the more I talk about this game. At first, sort of just looking at it, and based on what I was saying last week, two teams I think are going to miss the 8. It's actually a good matchup. They line up well. As styles make fights, and we're about to see which style is going to come out on top. And don't be fooled by what I said before about Central Coast Roosters. I think they do have a tough forward pack, but they've got points in them. Callan Cash can create points out of dummy half. Corbin Devaney, Bodie Jeffries, as I said, good finishers. Kyron Blairs can turn it on. I haven't seen too much of Jack Keenan, but we'll see how he goes as well at that 7 jersey. If he turns it on, ends up going all right, then Central Coast can definitely win this. Balmain, they started off last year really well. They've added Alex Isdale and Ali Karnib. I think they probably start similarly to what they did last year against these sort of even sides to them. Next game, South versus Steelers. I spoke in depth about the Rabbitoh side last week. Darcy Feltham, who I wanted to see line up at fullback, is not in the side at all, not even on the wing. So he's gone from trialling with them to not being in the lineup at all. I think he's asked for a release from what I've heard. I don't have any confirmed details, so I'm not going to speculate too much. But yeah, so that just means Isaac Fotumoala, he's gone to fullback. I would have had him in halfback. Thomas McKenna is going to grab that 7 jersey. I like him more as a back row and a lock, and I know, and I don't remember if I mentioned it last week on the podcast at all. He did come through the grades as a half. I think he was a 6. Coming through. The only junior rep footy that he's played, and that I've seen him play anyway, he was playing back row and was playing really good there. I'm not sold on it, him playing 7. But we'll see how he goes. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And if he does kill it, I hope he does kill it, because this side needs their 7 to kill it. With the amount of talent that they've got, if he just gets the ball out to their outside backs and lets his forwards lay a good platform, then he's done his job. Taj Alvarez at 6, he's going to be one of the best players in the competition this year. I said that last week. Gun centers. Caleb Creswell at 13. I like the look of him in the trials. I thought maybe he could play 7 as well. I heard that he was supposed to be a 7. I think he's from Queensland. He was one that could potentially play that role. He's playing at 13. Maybe they swap him and McKenna, and McKenna goes to 13. Because like I said, I've known McKenna to be a back rower. I really like him in the forward pack. I think he's tough as, and I thought this was a good signing when they did get him. But yeah, he's those two guys both worth watching. Off the bench, interesting to note, no Ben Cabry. but he is an age up. There was a lot of sort of messages about him not being in that lineup. He's an age up. It is what it is. I'm sure he'll find his way into the 17 at some point because I think he's a gun. Illawarra Steelers, for them, they backing their younger boys a lot here. Creighton Malfo and Mason Andrews, they're going to be the 12 and the 13. Both killed at Harold Matthews last year. They just straight up start in this SG Ball side. Zane Timmins, I think, is going to be the one to watch. He did some exciting things last year in SG Ball. He was overshadowed a little bit by Charles Heidke, who we're going to talk about a little bit later. He's been named in that NRL preseason trial game, but he's going to be one to watch there. Bo Boldick, I think, was named captain. I didn't have the C next to his name on this post, but I think off the top of my head he was named captain. He's going to be one to watch there. I think he killed it in their Laurie Daly setup last year. Mason Phillips as well. I mentioned him last week. Marley McLaren's injured at the moment. I think he returns rounds 2 or 3. From what I've been told, he'll come into that 6 or 7 jersey. Worth watching that halves pairing to see sort of who's going to stay in that lineup. Bo Boldick, I thought, was a forward. That shows my knowledge on Laurie Daly Cup. I've heard nothing but good things about him. So keen to see how he goes. South in this one, for me, their forward pack strong. Maddox Fui, Philip Lavakiaho, 2 guys who've already done an SG Ball. Taj Alfei-Farani, who was really good in Harold Matthews last year. Just the strike weapons all over the park. I've got South. Warriors Seagulls is the next game. I've sort of forgot to mention what times and kickoffs and all that sort of stuff, but because I've flipped over the page probably. But Warriors and Seagulls, that is the first of the Sunday games. That's at 9:30, and that's over in New Zealand. New Zealand, most of the time they do play Sunday games, and when they're over in New Zealand, they're always very early as well, which is, good for me if I've been watching footy for the whole day yesterday and then wake up at 8 a.m. to watch the first of the Warriors, Harold Matthews games and that. But for the Warriors, Joseph Ratcliffe, he's named at fullback. He was a fullback in their inaugural Harold Matthews premiership winning side. This is a strong lineup. Forward pack's good. Gordon Afoa, he's named at 8. He's going to captain this side. Very good player there. Connor Bowden, worth noting, he's named at centre. He was sort of the tall, rangy, athletic winger. From their side last year, was a good finisher. Interesting to note that he's been named at centre, but he is a powerful ball runner. I don't know what his passing game's like. I hadn't seen too much of it, obviously, with him out in the wing, but we'll see how he goes there. And this bench is really good. Renee Frame, Lennox Tuiloma, Crucial Koteka, and Tyson Hansen all off the bench. Guys who have been crucial to their last 2 seasons of winning Harold Matthews, more so those last 3 guys. Lennox Tuiloma was a gun in their inaugural side, playing at lock. He's behind Albert Bouchin for that 13 jersey at the moment. Bishop Neal's gone straight into the starting side as well, worth noting. He killed Harold Matthews last year. He was the player of the match in the grand final, and everybody's seen his highlights already, so not much more to be said there. Manly Seagulls, now one of the questions that got sent, well, it's less of a question, more of a statement, needs some talk about that Manly SG Ball side, those halves and hooker duo. I like it a lot. I did share it on my story the other day when I did post these team lists. I hadn't seen, and I didn't preview Manly at all. I hadn't seen anything on them. I like this team list a lot. Oscar Crotty and Anders Johansson out wide, centre and wing. They're going to be elite for this side. Taj Thompson goes all right from what I've seen. Honor Tony Large, Lachlan Metcalf in the halves with Ashton Large at 9. Like that is a stacked spine. 13, Lucas Barlow, who was doing some really good things in Harold Matthews last year. I like their back rows, Siffa Oldfield and Bo McKee. It's a really young side. There's a lot of up and age players here who were part of their Harold Matthews setup last year who did make the finals. last year, or they were playing to make the finals. They might have missed when they lost to Para in the last round, but they were pretty much playing knockout footy. And they've got some good additions in Anders Johansson and Lachlan Metcalf. So their side, I think, is a final side. That might push me over the edge of how many top 8 sides I can have in SG ball. So I've got to cut someone, but I really like the look of this side. And their 9-14 rotation: Ashton Large and Jackson Yeats. I don't think Jackson Yeats is going to be in his best role playing off the bench at 14. I think he's a really solid number 9. He's got a big boot on him. I don't know that he's, as sort of crafty or as quick through the ruck, but he's, good defensively, solid service, and a big boot. So that 9 and 14 combination is strong for mine. The forward pack's strong, like I mentioned. That back row in particular is impressive. So, yeah, a watch there, the Manly Seagulls. Nothing else to touch on there. I've got... The Warriors typically start off pretty slow, but it is a home game this time. And, Manly have to travel over there. If it was a Manly home game, I'd have Manly winning. But the Warriors home game tips it over the edge for me. I've got the Warriors. And like I said, Warriors are one of the teams competing for a comp. They typically do start off slow. And I think this will be a close game. It's just that travel factor that, for me, I've got the Warriors on top. Last game of the round for SG Ball. It's the Knights and the Sharks. That's another Sunday game. It's at 3 p.m. It's a Knights home game. Kingston Sevan, Curtis Mulheron just straight off the top. Those two out with injury. They're sort of injury ravaged a little bit this night side. I was very confused by it at first, not knowing sort of any setbacks that they'd had. But yeah, they've been hit by injury a little bit, before the season even started. That spine's really good. Toby Winter, Ryder Croswell, Chase Butler, and Diesel Hagen. That's a really strong one, 6, 7, and 9. Toby Winter was one of the best players in the comp last year. He'll back that up again this year. He's an Australian schoolboy, all that. Ryder Croswell, I've had big raps on him for a while. He played Laurie Daly mostly last year. I think he only played a handful of SG Ball games, but a full season in SG Ball. I think he'll probably, I hope he replicates what he was doing in Harold Matthews the year prior. And Chase Butler, one of the best defensive sevens in the junior ranks at the moment. He got a good kicking game. Just overall, a really strong number 7. So, yeah, keen to see that. Matthew McEwen in the 14. Well, he's in the 20 jersey, but in that 14 role, the utility, he's worth watching. He was quick at a dummy half. He can sort of cover a number of positions. He came up with a couple of really nice tackles in the trials on top of that. So, he's the younger brother of Jermaine and Eva McEwen, who have obviously gone on to do good things in NRL and NRLW and all that sort of stuff. So, one worth watching there. Will Manning, he was playing at Hunter Sports High School. He put in a really good season for them there. Good aerial threat. He's not that tall, but he seemed to win all his aerial battles. One of the most impressive ones, he was up against Central Coast. I forget what the winger's name was, but he was like 6'4" or 6'5", and Will Manning won every single aerial battle with him that whole day. So yeah, he impressed me a lot during the schoolboy season. So I'm keen to see how he goes in SG Ball. And then the Sharks, that squad looks stacked on paper. I already had them top 6 areas. They're fringe top 4. They're going to be in and around that sort of really competitive side. They've got a lot of Australian schoolboys in that side. Callum Grantham, Thomas Dello, Jake White, not named this week. Oh, no, he is. He's named in the 16 jersey. Sorry, I thought he'd be starting. But you got Hudson Frost and Jamie Curran there who are starting, who are guns as well. Back rowers, elite. Yeah, this is a very strong lineup. Even Thomas Beattie was good for their Harold Matthews side last year. He's going to be on the wing, with Oliver Lester there at fullback. This game, I've got the Sharks, and looking at that side, I think they might win by a little bit. Knights are a good side. don't discount them. I think, I said last week they were sort of in that fringe top 8 bracket, fighting for those spots. But that Sharks side looks great. Thomas Steppage off the bench. Yeah, I'm super impressed. Like when I first looked at the Seagulls lineup, first looked at the Sharks lineup, this is a good side. So yeah, I think I've got them winning. That wraps up SG Ball. And as I try and find where I'm at on these run sheets, there's a thing don't have my phone here, so I've got to go through physical run sheets and turn over the paper. You probably hear that if you're on Spotify, and you're definitely seeing it if you're on YouTube. But yeah, we move on to Harold Matthews. The first game, Roosters-Panthers, is at Muscat Oval as well. It'll be at 10 a.m. Most of these games are at the exact same location as the SG Ball games, and just an hour and a half earlier. But double check the New South Wales Rugby League app if you're unsure and looking to get down to any of these. Super exciting this game, and like I said, I'll be out at this one. I don't know what other games I'm going to be at throughout the week. I just know that's going to be my first, Roosters and Panthers. The Roosters' spine looks really strong. You got Samuel Large, Charlie Webb in the halves who I've talked about. Caleb Zara, I've talked about him a lot already. He hasn't even debuted in Harold Matthews yet. Marco Sando at 13, he's been named captain. I really like that. He impressed me a lot in the trials. I already knew a fair bit about him before. Anyway, he played Harold Matthews the year before and looked really good. I think he's primed for a huge year there at 13, Marquis Sando. The two centres there, that could be the best centre pairing in the comp. And they're coming up against another duo who I think could be, one of the best centre pairings in the comp. This is my matchup to watch in this game. Mana Toya and Andy Toya, both of relation to Rob Toya, Rookie of the Year for 2025, and play the same position. And I think one of them carries his defensive traits in particular, and the other one carries his offensive traits in particular. And Mana Toya defensively, he impressed me a lot. He's up in age in this, but he's going to be an incredible player to watch for this Roosters side. As with Andy Toya in attack, he lit up the Central Coast Roosters in that trial match up at Berkeley Vale, sorry. Up on the Central Coast, they played that trial. These two, super impressive in that game. And then they come up against Zach Fitzgerald and Salmani Leotupu, who have already played Harold Matthews and done really good things there. Zach Fitzgerald's a freak. He was, pulling off flick passes and trials and all that sort of stuff. I think he probably overplayed his hand a little bit in that trial against Parramatta. If he can tone it back a little bit and do what he was doing really well last season, and then just sort of add in that little bit of spice, he's going to be, one of the premier centers in this competition. This center matchup, is probably the two best center pairings in the comp for mine. Amos Vienga, I touched on him last week. He's a gun out the back at fullback. He's going to be one of the better players in this competition, in my opinion. Cordell Arama and Tamaj Lamusu, gun front row pairing. This is going to be a hectic game. Sadly, Panthers are missing Charlie Jureb and Jalen Moran, which are two huge outs. They're 6 and they're 13. And that, for me, just tips me over the line. I think full strength, both teams full strength. I've probably got the Panthers on top. I think Panthers, my early tip, to win the comp at this stage. I want to see a couple of rounds before I start saying this team will win the comp, this team will win the comp. But at this stage, Panthers are probably my favourite. But yeah, missing just two very key players there. So I got the Roosters. They'll be up for it. They looked pretty good in the trials. They did make a lot of errors against the Steelers. It was wet conditions. I'm willing to forgive it. But yeah, they need to bring their A game. This is going to be cracker. This is probably game of the round for Harold Matthews. Next game, Magpies versus Eels. Like I said in the SG Ball preview, I hadn't seen a whole lot about the Magpies. But I do like this team. There's Kingston Finau and Monson Hopewade, the centres. They're going to be worth watching. Joshua Ratu outside them. I've seen a few highlights and clips of him. He looks like he's got a little bit of potential there out in the wing. I've seen a fair bit of Terrell Golding Lions. I'm pretty sure he made that country under-16 squad. But I've seen him playing in the Andrew Johns Cup in one of the Tigers feeder sides there. I think MacArthur West. And he looked pretty impressive there. Sam Francis is another one that I saw in that competition who looked pretty good. A tall, rangy sort of back rower / centre. So he's going to be good to watch off the bench. And for the Eels, their back row, 11 to 13, Khan Jackson, Jake Capavilla, and Hayden Bell. That could be probably one of the better back rows in this competition. The interesting one for me is the battle for the fullback jersey between Liam Martin and Larimo Siu. Liam Martin's won that battle. He was, trialling most of the time at fullback throughout the trials. So it's not too surprising. But yeah, those two, I imagine they're going to be swapping throughout the year unless, Liam Martin just kills it, which he well and truly can do. He's been, a gun for the last couple of years. I'm pretty sure he was the player of the match in the under-15s schoolboy grand final. For CHS, I think he was playing for. He was really good in that competition and good to see him, going on with it here. Curtis Brown goes into the front row with Christopher Suoliti. They're missing Dion Haynes through to HIA, who's a good player there. He was impressive throughout the trials. And their bench is really good as well. They're the Eels. I've got the Eels winning this one. They beat the Panthers in the trial matches. Their forward pack looks strong. They did start a little bit slow. I think they got a little bit of fatigue errors in them. I'd like to see, there's a couple of guys here who are really good players who just fatigued very quickly in that Panthers trial. But, if they are improved conditioning-wise from that trial, I think they probably should win this game off of what I've seen and team lists and whatnot. Next game, Raiders versus Dragons. Just getting that team list up there and then flipping over to the very limited notes that I've got. For the Raiders, there's a couple of boys there returning. Josiah Charles at 13. He was back row mostly for them last year. He was super impressive. He made the City under-16 side as well. On top of that, Campbell Lloyd. Him and Asher Chapman were the premier dummy halves in Harold Matthews last year, and they were both an age up. Good to watch there. Bailey Logue, he played half the season last year. He missed a couple of games through the suspension about midway through the year, but he was their first choice half. He returns again this season. Altus Atilua, he returns as well. So there's a lot of guys bouncing back from last season. I do know they probably a little bit disappointing in the trials, just based on results. I didn't get the chance to watch them, but I'm pretty sure they got smacked by the Magpies in the last round of trials. But their team list is pretty, fine to me, from what I'm looking at. The Dragons, I really like the lock, Saluki Halangahu. He's Jacob Halangahu's younger brother. He doesn't play identical to him, but he has those same sort of mental traits. Very strong physically. He's a bit more of a middle forward. He doesn't, run that same line as Jacob Halangahu or anything like that, but very strong through the middle, powerful ball runner, good defender, chases after the contact. He's going to be one to watch there. And the 6, Rocco Walker, he could be one of the premier players in this competition. He was signed over from New Zealand. He was impressive in the trials. They've got a couple of players there to watch the Dragons. I've got the Raiders winning just based on team lists. I can't really tell too much more than that, just based on the guys that I know. There is a couple of guys I'd like to get a look at from both sides that I haven't seen much of. Keep your eyes posted for when I do watch that game and my review next week. Storm versus Bears in next game. Not overly informed on this game in terms of I don't know too many players. For the Storm, Texas Sirius Taluni comes back. He's a watch. There at center, he was pretty impressive for them last year. And, played. He was in that victorious squad at Schoolboys. You have, was there anybody else? No, that was just it returning. Hunter Stokey, impressive player there. I've seen him a little bit. He's a halfback. He should be good to watch here. And the North Sydney Bears, the watchers for me were Morgan Carter, who was signed from the Newcastle Andrew John side that won the comp, sort of that big body, number 6. He plays a little bit of centre as well. He's named at 6 here. The Bears have signed him for this season. Worth a watch there. And Braden Pearsall as well. I watched a little bit of him at the Eels 16s dev side last year. He was on that same side as Caleb Zara was. And just had a good work rate. He was pretty physical in contact. He's going to be playing back row for this North Sydney Bears side. But apart from that, I'm not going to tip a winner. I can't really tell you too much more than those couple of players. But, as I said in the preview, the more I watch, the more I'll be able to inform you. Central Coast Roosters, they look like they got a pretty strong side, especially, looking at that bench, that Cooper Smith, Hugo Lestrange, looks pretty good. Jake Dalby, I know he's sort of been floating around that Andrew Johns level for a little bit. He's playing back row for them. There's a couple of, players worth watching here. Jack Humphreys out the back. I know he's sort of been floating around a little bit. It's a solid lineup. Again, like the Storm Bears sides, I couldn't tell you too much more about them. For Balmain, Thomas O'Royan out the back. He comes back from last year. He was in the City 16 side. He's a good player there. He's got good kick returns, good yardage, all that sort of stuff. You can sort of see him going for 180 to 200 plus each game. This forward pack is actually super impressive to me, especially, 3 guys to watch in that forward pack. Noel Valtungi, I've seen a fair bit of him for MacArthur West Tigers last year. Sioweli Iongi, he's sort of been floating around for a while, and Ratu Mafu as well. He was really good for them in patches last year. Then you got the Warriors and Seagulls next up. Kyan Olsen, he played a fair bit for this side last year, mostly on the wing. He's been named at fullback. He's a watch there. Kenny struggling at the moment. Should be able to get this one too. Kenny Lafatuanai. I've said that name probably a million times over the last 2 years. He's named at prop. He was coming off the bench for them last year. He came up with a couple of really crucial offloads to come up with points last season. In the grand final, rather, was where I was going with that. Really good stint off the bench. Powerful ball runner, stocky. He's a watch there as well. He's played a watch. And then the Seagulls. Just another thing from the Warriors. No Satali Fretton named. I don't know what's the go with him. I don't hear too much out of New Zealand, so I can tip you into players that I know from last season, but end of the day, I don't really know too much. For the Manly Seagulls, Tom Longland returns. He's out in the wing, speedster. Scored plenty of tries for them last year. He was I know he's in and around that City under-16s conversation. Off the top of my head, I don't think he played in that game, but he was good last year for Manly. Then you've got returning as well, Keanu Mann, who was strong back rower. He's moved into the middle. I think he's put on a little bit of size. They're the 2 players returning. I can't tell you too much more about the rest of them. Like I said in the preview, didn't get to see too much of Manly, didn't get any squads early, didn't watch the trials, etc. Rabbitohs Steelers, that forward pack for the Rabbitohs, very strong. Xavier Suolavi, Luamaunu. Apologies, I've absolutely butchered that. I'm just getting deep. I did it last week as well, those names. Apologies to Hunter Fungupo, who I'd absolutely butchered, even though I probably should be able to say a name. There were some names I didn't even say last week because I was struggling towards the back end, and I'm starting to get to that point again today. But yeah, forward pack for the Rabbitohs, very strong. Davida Hopewade, big watch out there. He's a gun. He's named it on the wing. Harbs, Tukia for Tuamawala and Peyton Taro. I've done a couple of posts about those two already this season. That forward pack with Xavier, with Anthony Malungi as well through the middle. This is a strong lineup for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. And then for the Steelers, I think they're going to be one of the very competitive sides in this competition. Noel Fitzgerald wins that 7th spot, and Asher Chapman returns at 9. There's a lot of guys returning from last year. Appiamone is returning as well. He's at 13. You've got Oliver Burton at fullback as well. He was one of the premier players in last year's Harold Matthews comp. And that recording is because I started coughing and yanked the mic out, which completely stopped the recording. But I believe I was up to the Steelers. This is a very strong side. As expected, they did beat the Roosters in the trial that I watched. They beat the Central Coast Roosters as well. It was a 3-way trial. I think they're probably one of the sides to beat. They're up there, with the Panthers, Warriors, all that sort of stuff. I think they win this week as well. Knights versus Sharks. Riley Rostron, interesting move to 6, which just completely proves me wrong from last year because I just had him pinned down as a fullback and nothing else. But yeah, I sort of had him pinned down as a fullback and now he's playing 6. So interesting to see how he goes in the front line. But yeah, he's a gun player. He was really good. He was one of my tips for if the Knights won. I thought he'd be player of the match of the grand final. I do rate him very highly. I just, thought of him as a fullback and nothing more. But he's now playing 6 in this side. Ryder Tupu, heard very good things about him. He's going to be playing fullback. Cade McKay. I was going to say Cade McKay, named in the back row. He is one to watch this year. He could be on. He looked impressive in a couple of the trials. He was very good last year towards the back end of the year. Super underrated for mine. But yeah, a couple of really good players in this Knights match side. They look strong. Jack Asplit as well off the bench, one to watch. For the Sharks, their pack should be pretty good. Jaden Best, Logan Longbottom, Hayden Woolridge, they're all returning. Jaden Best, the 9. He changed momentum in a couple of games last year coming off the bench. Logan Longbottom, front rower, he was good off the bench as well. And Hayden Woolridge played a little bit, more so towards the back end of the year. Those 3 are the ones that I could tell you about. But that's about it. Again, more stuff for after I've watched a couple of games and, can tell you in more detail about, each of the players, who's going good, who's in form, all that sort of stuff. NRL trials. Let's get straight into it and try and wrap this up because we're getting up over an hour again. Bulldogs versus Cowboys, the first one at Cogra, 5:30 p.m. Interesting to note, Sasai Alatini and Jed Reardon, 2 back rowers, they've been named in the centres. Sasai Alatini, big bulky, good line runner, strong ball carrier. He's been outside Mitch Woods pretty much his whole junior reps career rather. And, been a great beneficiary of it. And Mitchell Woods has been a beneficiary of him outside him as well. Jed Reardon as well, super hard-working back rower. And playing centre. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know what to expect. But keen to see how they go in NRL trials. Alex Conti named at 7. I said years ago on Guru's podcast about how he was being slept on because he was next to Mitchell Woods. He gets his chance to shine here in an NRL trial, named at 7. Been one of the, one of the premier players in the junior rep systems. Played mostly flag last year. He was leading my SG Ball Player of the Year rankings about halfway through the year before, obviously, Lorenzo went on that absolute tear. And Alex Conti didn't even get a chance to defend his title because he was playing Jersey flag. So maybe he would have been SG Ball Player of the Year had he stayed down there the full season. Things that he was doing at Balmain in his Harold Matthews days, the things that he's done for the Bulldogs and SG Ball, he's maturing nicely. So yeah, he's probably my number 1 guy to watch in this in this side. Logan Spinks, he done really well in New South Wales Cup last year, scored plenty of tries. Big body, back rower, good line. He had a really breakout year last season. He's been with the Bulldogs SG ball side for a couple of years. I think he's going on to sort of 21 years old now. So yeah, he's primed to sort of make a push towards first grade, and this is a good start being named at 12. Zion Mayu and Eamon Fitzgibbon watches off the bench, and then on the extended, Jope Ruck, apologies again, he's worth noting on the extended. For the Cowboys, let's have a talk about Jackson Purdue. I've said for years, his best position for mine is halfback. He's named at 6 here, Jake Clifford at 7. Whether that's an indication that they want Jackson Purdue to play 6 next to Tom Dearden, it probably is. For mine, and I can understand why they don't want to go this direction, but with this combination of Purdue and Dearden, I think Purdue needs to be the on-ball half. I don't really believe as heavily anymore, especially in the modern game. You're starting to see it in that one half who's straight up, game manager, kick to corners, hit his forwards and then, let his 5'8" sort of run the attack, or all that sort of stuff. I think you've got an on-ball half and an off-ball half, or a guy that needs his hands on the ball majority of the time, can kick, can organise, can get you to a spot, and then you've got a 6 who can just create when he needs it. When he needs the ball, he gets the ball, and the other guy has hands on the ball most of the time. Jackson Purdue, for me, is that guy who just needs as many touches in a game of footy as possible. And I think him playing 7, that's the role for me. And Tom Dearden, he's been an elite number 6 his whole way through. He's been pretty good at 7. I still don't think you're getting the most out of Tom Dearden if he is at 7. I think him ball running down that left edge, that's where he's at his best. And I think Jackson Purdue at 7 can unlock that, whilst also getting the best out of Purdue. Because Purdue at 6 and Dearden at 7, it didn't look all that great to me last year. I'd been calling for Purdue to the halves for a long time before that, and it didn't really work out how I said it would. But I think Purdue, like I've said the whole time, 7 is his jersey. Halfback is his position, his best position anyway. The position you're going to get the most out of him. I think he can play fullback. I think he can play centers. I think he can play 5'8". I think he can do all those things. But next to Dearden, I think he's at his absolute best if he's playing 7 and Dearden's playing 6, and Dearden's at his best if he's playing 6. You've seen it in Origin, you've seen it for Australia, you've seen it in all these different things. So I don't know why you need to swap these two guys around, make Dearden control the whole thing, and then make Purdue play off the back of him, because I don't think that works. I think Purdue can play that sweeping role, creating attack. I think he can play that on-ball role. I don't think he can play sheltered down the left or sheltered down the right and get his ball off the half. I think his best role, first receiver, floating both sides of the ruck, distribute, get ball to your centers, get ball to your 5'8", get ball to your fullback. I think that's his best role. He's not going to be a perfect number 7. He's not going to be the typical, prototype number 7 that everybody has this idea of, where you have to kick, you have to kick the corners, you have to do this and do that. But what he is going to be is he's going to be dominant on ball. He's going to be a good talker. He's going to get you to spots. He's going to make things happen at that first receiver role, and he's going to unlock Dearden as well, the absolute best out of Dearden. I got concerns over this Cowboys side this year. I don't, preview NRL too much. I'm going to talk about NRL a lot more this season, because, I feel like I can contribute a lot in terms of, those guys, rookie, sophomore, second, third, fourth year players, and then, I can contribute a little bit in just terms of what I'm seeing, because I'm still watching the NRL every week. But yeah, I got concerns over this Cowboys side, but I think that's their best plan of action, is having, Purdue at 7 and Dearden at 6. Other things worth noting, Xavier Kerris, he's been biding his time there. He's still only young. He's number 9. He's got huge raps on him. Good player down there. Up there, but good player at number 9, Xavier Kerris. Zach Erdogan been blitzing preseason the last couple of years. He gets a chance at 14. Keen to see how he goes. Mason Kira, he's made a couple of Queensland under 19 squads. He was a 13 last season. He's a watch on the bench. And then Tyler Moriarty on the extended bench is another guy worth watching. Dragons Knights final game. This Dragons team is unreal. I love it. Cade Reed and LKT. Cade Reed and I was saying LKT. Cade Reed and Lycan King Tongia are the halves combo. That's super exciting for me. I think they're the long-term future of the Dragons. I think that's the halves combo for them. You got Daniel Atkinson and that there. Not sold on Daniel Atkinson half. I've seen him coming through as a fullback at the Jets and all that sort of stuff. Played a bit of half, and he's done good things over at the Sharks. I think people are forgetting that he barely played any footy last year for the Sharks. He was a backup to Hines and Trindle the year before that. I'm not sold on him yet. I know he's a good player, but I don't look at him as the done deal that sort of everybody thinks he is, just based on the raps that he's getting and what he has done in NRL. And I guess I suppose you could have a similar conversation around, Jonah Pezzett, who's done things and done well in first grade, but they're not the full package yet. And they're certainly far from a done deal. Like, they are guns. Like, that's not a certified thing yet. And I think, King Tongia and Cade Reed could, blossom into the two guys. They've come through and, they've played a lot of footy together as well, in SG ball and whatnot. So, two very talented players there. For Lycan King Tongia, I see a lot of things about his defence. And, he does have defensive issues. I'm not going to say that he doesn't. I've been rapping him for a long time, through the pathways at the Steelers, all that sort of stuff. I don't think his contact's an issue. There's a lot of people messaging me and all this, how shit. I remember I had a Dragons fan message me at some point last year and goes, how shit's like in defending. He needs to go back to New South Wales Cup, all this and that. I sort of went, mate, his contact's not bad. He makes tackles at a very high efficiency, near enough on 90% efficiency. I think the number's 89.43% or something like that. I think it's the people that he's next to, and he does. I'm not saying that he does not have a defensive issue. He does. He is at fault for a lot of points down that edge, particularly in the back half of the year. And you know who he didn't have next to him in the back half of the year? Valentine Holmes. He gets Hayden Buchanan next to him. I think it was the Raiders game. He played left center next to him. I think it was the Raiders. Defended really well that game. I don't think he had any missed, or he had one missed tackle. And there was pretty much no points scored down his end off the top of my head. I'll have to go back and watch that, but I might, clip this up and put it together and show you that. But like, his defense is a communication issue, I think. And I commented on a Levels post the other day as well, a sort of detailed thing of what I think. For me, it's a communication issue. Put him next to Val Holmes. Put him next to Hayden Buchanan. He looks good. Put him next to other guys who he's not really talking to well. For me, he's got good comms with Hayden Buchanan because they've come through the grades together and they've been a super partnership. He's got good comms next to Val Holmes because Val Holmes is a senior premier player and knows what to do and is a loud talker. I don't know about the guys next to him when they were rotating through guys. At the back end of the year with Val, obviously out with the shoulder injury. Hayden Buchanan was sort of in and out and playing different sides and whatnot. That's my take on King Tongia. I think he should be the 6 this year for sure. He's got so much upside as a player. More development into him. An extra year of first grade. He's going to be a freak, I think. Jacob Halangahu at back row, just... don't need to talk too much more about him. He's a freak. Off the bench, Tyler Peckham-Harris, Charles Heidke, Hayden Buchanan, and Nick Sugranis. A lot of guys who can play sort of centre and cover. Nick Sugranis and Tyler Peckham-Harris can cover multiple positions. Tyler Peckham-Harris, a fullback. He was very strong in defence in the New South Wales Cup Grand Final. He'd done a couple of really good things there. He's been super, sort of like that Preston Campbell type of small fullback who can create a lot. during the SG Ball season, they won the comp with him there. He had a really good game in the grand final. Charles Heidke, one of the best players in SG Ball for the Steelers last year. Hayden Buchanan, I've just spoken about him a fair bit. I think he should be in the first grade side. They got sort of Matt Fangai and David Farley ahead of him at the moment, it looks like. But I would really like to see him play that left centre role next to Like and King Tongia. I think they can strike up a really good partnership out there. And, Nick Sagranis as well, who made his debut last season. He was good there. Off the extended bench, Loko Pacifici Tonga, Cyrus Stanley Trail and Ryan Hutchison, all worth talking about, all worth watching. Hutchinson is one who, the other guys have spoken a fair bit about. They've played Origin, all that sort of stuff. Ryan Hutchinson's sort of one that's flying a little bit under the radar. He's just an absolute dog in the middle. He's not one that's, that super talented standout guy. But I think he makes his debut in the next couple of years. He's about 21, 22 now maybe. He was part of the SG Ball side that won the comp a few years ago. In the Dragons, he come through with Loko, Halangahu and all those guys. Like he's part of all the same sides. Just gets through so much work through the middle. He played really well in New South Wales Cup last year. I was spewing when he wasn't in the grand final team list, especially after how good he played in the semi-final against Para. But yeah, those guys all worth a watch. Versus the Knights, very young side. You got your Kyle McCarthy's, Fletcher Hunts, Fletcher Sharps, all these guys all playing. Wilson DeCourcy, big watch there. Super talented sort of centre/winger. Scored plenty of tries in New South Wales Cup last year. One of the premier players in his position in that comp. Jermaine McEwen, same as Halangahu, just freak. Off the bench, worth talking about Matty Arthur and Tyson Gamble. Sort of, I think they're competing for a 14 jersey. Good reports about Matty Arthur's pre-season. I've had raps on him for a while. In that 9 position, I think he's probably the long-term 9 at the Knights. And, the starting 9 here is Harrison Graham. I think sort of Arthur jumps him in that regard. Other ones worth watching off the extended bench. Cody Hopwood had a lot to say about him. Logan Owaki, he was an Australian schoolboy a few years ago. Done good things through New South Wales Cup, SG Ball. Matthew Huntards just signed in from Parry. He had a really good season, Jersey Flag and New South Wales Cup. Connor Vitano had a bit of a stinker in his NRL debut. Not shying away from that fact, but he's always been super talented. Another one worth watching. And then Lockie Crouch, I think that's his name, Lockie Crouch, Lachlan Crouch, signing from the Sharks. He's impressed me through Jersey Flag and New South Wales Cup and all that sort of stuff. So another one there who's worth a watch off that extended bench. That'll do us. Another hour-long plus episode, and it seems like that's going to be a regular occurrence. For my SG Ball Harold Matthews reviews, that's the word. I'm going to be doing those on the weekend, just while these things are fresh on my mind after I've watched the games. I'm just going to sort of go through the games that I watched throughout that day, and then do another one sort of after I've finished watching all the games. Just so I can sort of keep it short and sweet. These better off around that sort of half an hour mark for those sorts of things. But yeah, this main podcast will come out every single Thursday morning, and talking about all these sorts of different things, whatever topic I feel like talking about. Previewing the junior reps, and then once that moves on, New South Wales Cup, Jersey Flag, Queensland Cup, and just I think I'm going to go more towards just talking about whatever I want to talk about instead of previewing games. But for the moment, I'm going to try and cover as much as I can, cover every team equally, because I know a lot of people complain about me not covering this team as much or this team as much. At the moment, I'm covering every team equally. All right. So we're sweet. I'm sweet. You're sweet. See you next week.